Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Need Some Introduction. I'm your host, Victor, and on this podcast, we're usually going week to week, breaking down a streaming favorite. On today's episode, I'm all by my lonesome here in this mid-summer week. Darren's on vacation with his family, and I'll take this time to make some streaming recommendations, but primarily introducing a new series that I will be going week to week with Darren, the new Apple TV crime thriller, Lucky, starring Anya Taylor-Joy, and quite an impressive supporting cast as well. Coming up on the podcast, Sona and I will be breaking down at least the two most recent episodes of Cape Fear as we're approaching the end of that series. Very uneven ride there, but we've committed to stick with it to the end. And by the time Darren comes back to discuss Lucky next week, we will have both seen the Odyssey in IMAX. Speaking of that very highly anticipated Christopher Nolan film, we have been rewatching all the Nolan films. We've gotten pretty close to the end, Alan and I, but check out the ones we've watched so far. We have reviews of all of them available on the Patreon or in the main feed. We started in the main feed, transitioned over to the Patreon. Check the show notes for the link to the Patreon. All those episodes are currently free. And of course, just last week, Darren and I ranked all the Nolan films. So check out all that content on the main feed, on the Patreon. Drop us a line if you have any commentary, any questions. What in this dead spot in the summer, is there something you're watching, maybe something older or something that's recently become available to stream that you want to shout out, recommend to the listenership in general? Drop us an email, needssomeintroduction@gmail.com. Or reach out to us via Spotify. I have heard from a few listeners that The Agency, by the way, Agency Season 2, not confirmed or greenlit for a Season 3 yet. A really terrific season of television. I do hope we get a third season, but Season 2 was greenlit before Season 1 even wrapped up, and I do not think it had the kind of list of viewership that was necessary to keep that series going, but I do hope they do keep it going. And initially, by the way, Darren and I discussed those episodes here on the feed. Pretty slow out of the gate, but listeners have turned in, so it seems to be that people are catching up with the series. So maybe, fingers crossed, we might get another season of the show. Anything else you've been catching up on, as I mentioned, reach out to us and let us know. NeedSomeIntroduction@gmail.com. Our email link is in the show notes as well. If you happen to be unable to write an email now, check it out later. All right, my solo recaps seem to go pretty quick when I only have myself to talk to. So maybe I'll kick this off just to talk about things that are available to stream that you may have missed, that Darren and I, or Alan as well, have brought up along the way here on the podcast, or you heard about in popular culture and haven't had a chance to catch up on. And some of these things are things that I've seen that I thought were pretty good that really slip between the cracks. So many things just kind of disappear into a streamer. They're in theaters for a couple of weeks and then they just kind of vanish. So an opportunity for me to circle back, announce them if I haven't announced them before. And almost everything I'm about to announce here is available to stream, and I'll let you know where you can stream it, in case you need something to watch while you're waiting for your new favorite series to premiere. It has been a pretty dry spell since Widow's Bay. Okay, the first thing to announce is that if you've been hearing about this film obsession, of course, we have brought it up here on the podcast multiple times. I just rewatched this with my wife. I did not think it was going to be her cup of tea, but I had heard a lot of people, a lot of women specifically, that were like, I didn't want to go see that movie, but then I saw it and I loved it. And I thought maybe that would happen with my wife. Nope, it didn't happen with my wife. She did not appreciate that film. She appreciated some of the things it did, but didn't really work for her. But of course, one of the, if not the story currently of the year at the box office, this phenomenal run of Obsession, this incredibly low budget film that has, from a YouTube creator that has just taken the world by storm, literally, at this point. When the last time we touched base about it, it had taken off in the United States, week to week, growing, even surprisingly. And around the world, it was doing solid business, but not exceptional. But now the same thing has happened overseas. As its box office has cooled in the US, it continues to be a huge success overseas, heading over $200 million and even more over there, as there are some large territories yet to open So on this tiny, less than $1 million budget, headed towards a total close to $500 million bucks. If you heard my conversation with Darren, I'm like, well, if this thing makes it to $500 million, it'll be like one of the most profitable films of all times. Doesn't look like it's going to actually make it to 500, which, by the way, when I said that, I didn't actually anticipate that was a reality. I just was saying that is a possibility given its phenomenal early run. Well, it looks like that phenomenal pie in the sky number is right around where it's going to land. All that is to say that it's available at home now. You can rent it currently, but most importantly, from perspective of something you can stream, if you have Peacock, you can start streaming this on Friday, this upcoming Friday, the 17th. And that is certainly to be probably the biggest premiere Peacock has all year. And of course, so much was spoken in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal even, pairing up not only that film, but of course, another YouTube-inspired horror film, which was doing gangbusters business, and this one rounding up around $400 million. Backrooms, which not currently available to stream, but I do want to mention that as of this week is available to rent. So both of those films, which had amazing box office runs, now available at home. Okay, for a general audience, of course, we have to start things off with probably the biggest streaming title at the moment and one of the biggest hits of the year, Project Hail Mary. We just did karaoke this weekend, and Sign of the Times was my song, inspired by Project Hail Mary and the karaoke scene therein. This is now available on Amazon Prime, and a great film to watch, a great film to rewatch. I have watched this. I felt, when I first saw it in theaters, I did not bring my daughter, and after I'd seen it, I'm like, oh, this would have been a great film for her to see. We watched it as a family. She was rapt the entire time, although she's not normally into science fiction. This is a film that will just pull you in. Not a perfect film. Has the end has its complications that I'm not a huge fan of. But for a general audience, for just a pleasurable watch, even the ending, of course, is all part of this recipe. A real pleasure, and even on the smaller screen at home, still a really entertaining watch. Another family viewing experience, despite the fact that it features prominently a murder, The Sheep Detectives. For those of you who don't know about this one either, Hugh Jackman plays a farmer who reads murder mysteries to his sheep, and eventually these well-trained sheep investigators have to solve a murder themselves. Now, this film, of all things, was written by Craig Mazin, who's written for The Last of Us, one of the show creators of The Last of Us, as well as Chernobyl, very uplifting films, but it's easy to forget that he actually began his career writing comedies. He wrote Identity Thief, he wrote the Scary Movie 3 and 4 films, he wrote 2 of the Hangover films. All of those scripts are pretty terrible, and then he has made some great films, and great series, I should say, specifically Chernobyl. And this film was defying gravity from a box office perspective early in the year, early in the summer, I should say, right around the time that Obsession was taking off. Kind of forgotten was the fact that this film was also way overperforming and ended up with around $150 million around the world. And this is a totally charming, fun watch. It's something you can watch with the family. Again, Project Hail Mary, The Sheep Detectives. If you're looking for family viewing, these are the way to go. Also available on Amazon Prime. And that is probably the extent of my family-friendly recommendations. So many of the films that have recently become available to stream are definitely not family-friendly. And a lot of them are horror titles, like I kicked things off with. But surprisingly, a lot of comedy, thrillers, comedy, horror adjacent films, but definitely not for the whole family. So many of these are available on HBO, between Warner Brothers making a real concerted effort to continue to make big budget horror films, which has really paid off for them. Just last year, you had Weapons, you had the Final Destination reboot, you had Sinners, of course, the Academy Award nominated and winning Sinners. But also they have this relationship with A24, and A24, of course, has made a really strong connection to a young audience through these often low-budget horror films. And their release window, or the A24's release first streaming window, is with HBO. So between Warner Brothers and A24, both having these HBO deals, a lot of horror on HBO. So just some of the things you can watch there. First of all, in this vein of the more comedic, if by chance you have seen Ready or Not, and if you haven't, do check out Ready or Not, the first film. before you watch Ready or Not 2, Here I Come. This one did not really work for me. Oh, and my apologies. This is on Hulu, by the way, so not an HBO release. I love Samara Weaving in this lead role as this vengeful bride. If you've seen the first film, it turns out that she's married into a family with a strange ritual that endangers her life. I'll leave it as vague as possible. And we pick up immediately from that film with this second film. The second one really felt like so by the numbers. Didn't work for me. I know some people disagree. They like this one as much or more than the first one. Not my thing, but it is something that definitely slipped between the cracks this year. So I do want to shout it out. But more, I want to introduce that as a springboard to some other recommendations. First of all, a big fan of Zazie Beetz. I am here. And a couple of films she's in, both comedic thrillers, one science fiction, one goes horror. The one that really she owns the screen, she's the primary character in every scene practically, is They Will Kill You, which is available on HBO and HBO Max. And for me, this is the more entertaining version of Ready or Not 2. So if you're going to choose one over the other, these films came out at the exact same time, by the way, and probably cannibalized each other's box office. For me, this is the better one, the fresher take on things. It's the more over the top, but in a fun way, and the more engaging and surprising, and just the fresher take, period. So if you're going to choose between one or the other, I'd say go with They Will Kill You. Again, not general audience, but if you like Quentin Tarantino inspired horror film with a lot of splatter effects, think Kill Bill, but with a horror angle to it, and supernatural elements. Definitely what they were going for, probably the sales pitch. They Will Kill You is the more entertaining of the two titles for me. If you're a fan of the Evil Dead films, then not only are all the Evil Deads available on HBO, including Evil Dead Rise, the most recent one, of course, in theaters, the sequel to that film, but Lee Cronin's The Mummy also just premiered there a couple weeks ago. Lee Cronin, the director of the most recent Evil Dead, and although it's called The Mummy, it might as well be an Evil Dead movie. So if you do really love the Evil Dead films, and I was not a huge fan of Evil Dead Rise, by the way, do check out The Mummy. Darren did see The Mummy and quite enjoyed it. Speaking of the Evil Dead, a very fun thriller, not a horror film at all, but available on Hulu, is Send Help, one of the bigger hits from earlier this year. Terrific performances from Dylan O'Brien and especially Rachel McAdams. And the reason I correlated to the Evil Dead films is, of course, this is a big return for Sam Raimi, the director of those Evil Dead films and the original Spider-Man trilogy, by the way. And he is having a real blast, and it's definitely infectious. Now on to some titles that nobody saw, but I really think deserve a wider audience. First of all, How to Make a Killing. Now, this is directed by John Patton Ford, who made the excellent Emily the Criminal thriller from a few years back. This is not as good as that. That is the better film. But this film stars Glen Powell as this black sheep in the family of a bunch of jerks who can inherit billions of dollars. And he is very low on his pecking order of this family that has shunned him his whole entire life. But if he can kill everyone ahead of him on that list of inheritors, he can win it all. I was very much looking forward to this film. I think it is a great premise, very fun premise, there's so many of these kind of eat the rich comedy thrillers in the past few years. Glen Powell, for me, has a certain, everybody's trying to make Mr. Nice Guy all the time, but there's a certain level of menace to him that I think he knows to lean into every once in a while. So very much looking forward to everything about this project. And it was just good. It could have been great. It was just good. But if any of those things I described to you hit a pleasure center for you, do check this out. It is an easy watch, a quick watch. It came and went in theaters completely forgotten. Glen Powell gets to have a little glint in his eye, a little bit of he gets to play the nice guy, but he also gets to play the evil guy, leading into that. And I think this is it's a pretty entertaining film, and more people should have seen it. And speaking of Zazie Beetz, a relatively small part, but something that should have been seen by many more people. Good Luck, Have Fun, Don't Die, now available on Hulu. And the setup for this film is Sam Rockwell looking like an unhoused person, rolling into a diner full of very recognizable character actors, including Zazie Beetz, but also Juno Temple and Haley Lou Richardson and Michael Pena And this is directed by Gore Verbinski, who made the Pirates of the Caribbean films, but really after making these giant bloated films, disappeared for a while, and now coming back to a relatively small budget film. And Sam Rockwell shows up. He has some kind of device strapped to him. Is it a bomb? He claims it's actually a time travel device. And those people, this combination of people, these random people in this diner have the ability of saving the world from this coming apocalypse. I won't tell you all the details of the apocalypse, but it has something to do with AI. That's all I'll tell you. This film feels DIY. It feels like punk rock. It feels like it is made. It probably cost, well, part of it is the budget actually was pretty reasonable, but a lot of this is Verbinski probably calling in favors to get some of this special effects work done. But in general, the way it is staged, it feels very handmade, like Michel Gondry videos from the 1990s and early 2000s. And it definitely feels heartfelt. It definitely is fun to watch. It has a sci-fi element to it, as you would expect, given everything I just said. Overtly turns to sci-fi as it continues. But for me, as a fan of Verbinski early in his career, the main thing that I really loved about this is a sense that he is really having fun. He's rediscovering the pleasure of making a film on a budget, and as well as Sam Rockwell giving an absolutely fantastic, hilarious performance. One more recommendation I should have made right off the top. Just pulling up my HBO Max app and noticing their number one movie right now is The Long Walk, the Stephen King adaptation. So yet another thing to catch up on. Darren and I discussed this briefly when we were talking about all these Stephen King adaptations as part of our Welcome to Derry coverage last year. A very solid adaptation of that unadaptable, honestly, just a bunch of people walking and killing each other, Stephen King novel, but terrific performances and an interesting metaphor for society now, especially this lost generation of young men trying to find a place, trying to define themselves in some ways, and maybe finding self-destructive ways of doing so. So always amazing how King's stories continue to be adaptable and relevant and a solid, not a great adaptation, not a great film overall, but a solid film. And again, the two central performances, fantastic. And also this week, we saw the first teaser for Mike Flanagan's adaptation of Carrie, the Stephen King novel, his very first novel. I'm a little wary that we need a series. Is that too much real estate for the Carrie story? But very curious. Also, of course, another adaptation coming this fall, Crystal Lake, starring Linda Cardellini, a prequel series that expands on the universe of Friday the 13th. And both of these are coming around spooky season, right before Halloween, and we'll be covering them here on the podcast. By the way, Crystal Lake, also from the showrunner that created Welcome to Derry. I wasn't a huge fan of that, by the way, Darren as well, but very popular. So if you were a fan of that show, do put this on your radar. And I actually think that it is intriguing when you think about the strange, bizarre Friday the 13th mythology that spun up after that one slasher film and how it's become this decades-long series. There is opportunity there to delve into the mythology. So I am curious, definitely curious. There is opportunity to do something fun with that. So I'll definitely be discussing those in the future. And just surprising that horror series are becoming a thing again. Flanagan, of course, has had some very successful Netflix horror series. And we just had the very entertaining Widow's Bay, but maybe a trend of horror in the cinemas and also at home. We'll see how these projects all do. And just to round things up, of course, if you're still catching up on last year's Academy Award nominees, you have Sinners available on HBO. You have Marty Supreme available on HBO. You have Weapons available on HBO. You have Begonia available on Netflix. You have Hamnet available on Netflix. By the way, if you had not caught up on Hamnet because it was playing on Peacock, I believe, one of the lower streamers, it is now currently on Netflix, so do check that out. That's another film that I think, for me, that one really didn't come together until the very end, although I very much liked the beginning of that film and the very end of that film, and then parts of it in the middle didn't quite work for me. But I think that I'm in the minority there. It's a film that a lot of people really love. So do check out Hamnet. Even I, who had a lot of questions about probably the novel, honestly, rather than the film, about the way the story is told, really loved the cast in that film, especially the kids, and the finale, very powerful. Oh, and of course, Sentimental Value, another Academy Award nominee. available on Hulu. Oh, and of course, just to mention some films that were very popular earlier in the year that are now available at home. Wuthering Heights, which I have not finished. I struggled to get through that, made about halfway through. I may finish it someday, is available also on HBO Max. It feels like I am doing an HBO Max commercial here, but that wasn't my intention, honestly. One more thing to mention before we get into the Lucky coverage. On and off, Darren and I have been discussing Maximum Pleasure Guaranteed. I guess Darren maybe didn't pursue it beyond episode 1, but Sona was definitely watching it and it has fallen off as well. But any of you out there who sampled this series, it did just have its season finale this very week. Seemed to be modestly popular, so perhaps, and there's been no announcement yet, perhaps Apple will renew this for another season. And I do mention that because it has a great hook for a second season of the show. So I definitely would be curious to see a second season. For me, this season was a little uneven, but if you're curious to know whether it lands the plane or not, it definitely gives you a satisfying conclusion to this story, sets up a much bigger expansion of the story in a season 2, which could be very intriguing. And at less than half an hour per episode, and I forget if this was 8 or 10 episodes, but all that is to say, we're talking about 3 to 5 hours, somewhere in there. I count the episodes. I actually don't have the episode count in front of me. But this is a breeze to watch compared to Cape Fear, if you've been watching that. And it's all out to binge now if you'd like. So if you started it or were curious to check it out, I do recommend it. I think it's, as a thriller, works really well. I did not watch it as a binge, but I did watch a couple episodes here at the very end together. And I think this would be a quick, fun binge for the summer and has a satisfying ending and can give you a possible season 2. Again, will there be a season 2? That is up to the gods at development headquarters at Apple TV. And whatever metrics they look at, which God knows what those things even are. So as I'm wrapping up this commentary here, my wife has seen the first 1.5 episodes, watching this as I'm recording this, of Lucky, and she gives it the thumbs up. She cannot wait to see what happens next for Lucky. So if you needed that extra nudge to give the show a chance, Kim gives her thumbs up as well. On Friday, I will be giving you my initial reaction. Okay, so Lucky comes from Jonathan Tropper, who maybe most relevantly to this series is one of the creators of Banshee, which I think is also available on HBO Max. But unlike that series, which went on for multiple seasons, this is a limited series, only 7 episodes, 2 of them dropped on day 1. I gotta tell you, as I am suffering through watching 10. How is this possible? 10 episodes of this Cape Fear adaptation. What a relief to see a 7-episode series and get 2 thrilling and short 45-minute episodes, probably shorter minus credits. And a great cast here. We have Anya Taylor-Joy playing Lucky. This is her first TV, I think, since The Queen's Gambit, that massively popular series during the pandemic, but has worked with Apple before. She did The Gorge last year, a very popular movie which was not very good, but very popular, and doing a pretty solid job as a action heroine here. She needs to be able to balance these action set pieces, which of course she proved she could do when she did Furiosa last year, but along with these more emotional moments. And I think for the most part, doing a very solid job. And she is on screen this whole entire time. And if that doesn't work, this series isn't going to work, but you definitely get someone who is just compelling to watch, honestly, in pretty much everything she's done. So a real showpiece for her, and so far really impressed with her. She's been trained. So there's some details here, like the setup for the series. Her and her husband are celebrating that this is their last day in Vegas. The series is set in Vegas. And some kind of heist has been going on. It's some kind of accounting heist, which we don't know the details of quite yet, where money's been siphoned off from some large company. It looks like somebody was stealing money and hired someone to launder the money, but then that launderer siphoned some of the money. So probably billions of dollars siphoned into hundreds of millions of dollars, and then siphoned into tens of millions of dollars through this Russian nesting doll of siphoning off illegal gains. Very curious to see if there's some kind of commentary on this inverted pyramid scheme. but I suspect there might be some payoff there, just thematically as well. She and her husband are celebrating. It has some of the energy of the blissful moments in like a Nora, for example, definitely something that they're borrowing from. And of course, just like that film, there will be a hangover. Lucky's dad is played by Timothy Olyphant, excellent as always, who is in jail. We don't know exactly what he's in jail for, maybe relating to this crime, perhaps not. And apparently the money they've stolen, about $10 million worth, I believe, this is Lucky's money that they've stolen, this couple, they are about to be discovered sometime in the morning. That night, while they're celebrating, something is picking away at Lucky. Her dad always taught her to don't trust that things are going well. Don't trust anyone, actually, is one of his key mottos. And no shortcuts. And initially she's thinking, I think I've missed something. There's some detail I missed. And her husband says, no, don't worry about it. It's okay. You just can't accept that things are going well. But of course, we know we see it all coming. And luckily, it all happens very early in the series. She's being betrayed by him. He drugs her. We see it happen. They are partying on rooftop of one of the hotels. She wakes up severely hungover. She's now past her deadline to escape from Vegas. And everyone is out to get her. There is TV coverage on every television. The biography of this couple that's on the lam that stole these tens of millions of dollars from taxpayers. So I still don't know where the money's being siphoning from, but apparently they're saying this money was stolen from American taxpayers. And of course, this woman is blessed / cursed, given that she's on the lam, of looking like Anya Taylor-Joy, who's not only like, of course, beautiful, but one of the most unique looking people on earth. If you've seen her ever, you remember her. You may not remember her name, but you definitely know I've seen that person before. And she's on the lam. Anyone who's seen her picture on TV is going to be able to pull her out of a lineup within minutes. And early in episode 1, she's just trying to escape this hotel. A very clever setup here where she's trying to escape the hotel. She almost gets out the door. She sees someone who spots her right away. It is the muscle for this mob for which they've actually stolen the money from. Clifton Collins Jr., another great character actor doing terrific work here, playing this totally cool, calm, and collected. He's set on fire at one point, and he just kind of calmly deals with it. Everybody on this series is just the epitome of cool, more or less, which is part of the pleasure of the whole thing. He goes by Dutch, and she's trying to escape from him, only to turn around, go back into that hotel, and be spotted by FBI agent Billy Rand, played by Ingenue Ellis Taylor, recognizable from Nickel Boys, for example, if you ever saw that. Also available on Amazon Prime, by the way. Excellent film. But Dutch is actually working on behalf of Priscilla, played by Annette Bening. What a cast. What a cast. And she's been released from prison to track down Lucky because she's under the thumb of yet another baddie, who I guess I won't reveal who it is here because we don't find out till episode 2 or so. And there may even be other starry characters we have not even met yet. But early in the going, the film, I say film, it really feels like a film. The series itself is primarily concerned with having Lucky, which of course, ironically with that name, or maybe not ironic, has to escape from one situation to another. So we, very importantly here, we have not seen the heist. They have pulled off the heist. They have the money in bags in their rooms. They're just celebrating. They're ready to make a clean escape. Everything is perfect, only for her to wake up the next day. And then in flashback, we see, I think Oliphant's been de-aged in these flashbacks. I don't know if maybe they just pinned his skin back or something, but he looks so young in these flashback sequences. But we see Oliphant currently in prison via phone, talking to his daughter, and importantly, telling her that he's always in her head because he's been training her since she's a little girl. And we see flashbacks to that as well about how he has trained her to be this perfect criminal. And I think even now, the point of the series, at least partially, is not only to be a thriller, but to explore the kind of baggage that he has left with her. He's made her very good at surviving this particular extreme circumstance, but it's also made her incapable of trusting anybody. And in this particular case, shouldn't have trusted anybody. But as things progress, it seems to be that the show wants to explore these alternate routes, the version of the upbringing that she didn't have. and what that legacy that her dad left her may be. But most importantly, all that thematic stuff, which is definitely there, and I'll get into it a little bit more when we break down episode 2, is really just conveyed through her actions. She is incredibly adept at getting out of every circumstance. And if you like that, I mean, that's really the pleasure of these type of shows. If you like a cat and mouse, where the cat and the mouse are both equally skilled, this is really like The Fugitive, right? Like it's, she is the fugitive. She's on the lam. She needs to change her appearance. She needs to manipulate people in the moment to be able to get what she needs to survive, because she's being chased not only by a police officer who's not a dum-dum, who's not lazily missing clues, but is very adept and is hot on her heels. And equally adept is Dutch, this right-hand man to this mobster, who is also hot on her heels. So it's who will win this matchup. Of course, we know, at least until episode 7, it's got to be Lucky, who is able to get lucky, at least just luck, if not more than that, skill as well, to make it that far. The film actually, the series actually opens with Lucky about to be caught by the FBI, by an FBI agent. And then we flash back. Not my favorite storytelling conceit, but fine in the grand scheme of things. We don't flash back 3 episodes at least. We're only flashing back to basically the middle of that first episode. And as I mentioned, she needs to, we see the flashback, the husband, the setup, the drugging. She wakes up in her room. And then we see her assuming that she is being surveilled, and the angel on her shoulder, her dad, in flashback and via phone call throughout the series itself, coaching her and reminding her of what she's learned. And we see that she's learned, been trained basically for this exact circumstance. And things expand from initially the cops and the mobster and she are all inside the same building together, and she's able to make her escape, pretending that she's been abused by a boyfriend. The driver who gives her a ride out of there actually suspects that that's not a true story, but lucky as she is, she gets the one sympathetic truck driver who even gives her cash, more than she asked for, to help her out. Turns out he has a daughter of about the same age. Again, this is all kind of just luck, but hey, the name of the show is Lucky. So it's right on the label. She's dyed her hair over the course and cut it as well. Still, she still has that face, I gotta say. So you gotta take everything with a grain of salt that she would be caught immediately just because of the way she looks. By the time we circle back to that truck stop with the FBI agent about to capture her, this is when Annette Bening swoops in and rescues her from imprisonment, but out of the frying pan into the fire, sometimes literal. She ends up zip-tied and thrown into the back of a car. Luckily, she has her dad's gift lighter that apparently gets her out of many scrapes. She's able to burn through the zip tie. She uses a road flare through the car seat to smoke out the drivers in the car. There's an accident, and one of the 2 henchmen survives and is about to choke her to death when her little pocket knife comes in super handy and goes right into that guy's temple. When she wakes up the next morning, episode 2 begins. Before we get to episode 2, just beat for beat, one thrilling revelation after another. The plot is being delivered through these action set pieces, sometimes clunkily, like we see the news broadcast kind of filling in blanks in the plot, but all to be expected in these type of stories. Of course, The Fugitive being the most obvious example, and maybe even a template for what we see here, because in episode 2, she's now wandering through the desert. She saves some girls from being killed by a rattlesnake. Their paranoid grandmother intercedes, almost blows her head off. Don't really love this character until she's playing terrified when the cops arrive, by the way. It's not until we get to episode 2 and we see Lucky interacting with this makeshift family of women that we start seeing some of the thematics here in the series. Apparently, this woman is watching these girls because of the loss of her daughter, their mother. And with the Odyssey and coming out now, just the thought again that all these series are eventually some reference to the Odyssey. Or maybe The Wizard of Oz. Lucky is on a return journey home, and these different stops along the way might reveal something about her own upbringing. She talks about how she didn't have this type of dinner with her family every single night because of the way she was raised by her dad. We still don't know the details of why her mother was absent. But here's another version of a different type of upbringing she may have had. And also, as she's continuously, she's even described as somebody who will use anybody, take anybody out without any qualms, but does seem to empathize with the situation these girls are in. There seems to be something in the performance that indicates feels bad about promising that she'll be back when she knows she will not. And of course, flashing back and forth between the present where she's interacting with these girls, this alternate family, this alternate history she may have had, this alternate upbringing with the way she was raised by her dad. The pluses and minuses of that is, of course, as well. It's made her who she is now. It makes her resilient. It makes her a survivor. When Priscilla meets with John, the Timothy Oliphant character in prison, he knows that he has this confidence that his daughter is safe, that she'll survive. He says something very interesting early on, that you're not in danger if you're in control, and we're always in control. And that's an interesting philosophy to have, because it does raise the question of how often is someone who thinks they're in control actually in control. And that illusion of control, the confidence it gives you maybe to get out of a circumstance, but it is a question I think that will be raised repeatedly, especially because his daughter oftentimes is just getting lucky. By the time we get to the end of episode 2, Agent Rand has arrived. Dutch is hot on their heels. Very entertaining sequence. She has escaped. Lucky has escaped, has left her little knife in the tire of Brand's car just to slow her down enough. She escapes. Dutch drives going the opposite direction. Hears on the radio scanner, the police scanner, that she's driving a stolen car, turns around and runs into her at the local gas station. She's able to get out of that circumstance, setting him on fire, as I mentioned earlier. And as the police approach, he makes his escape, and Lucky hiding in the trunk. She's lucky he didn't check the trunk or the bed of the truck. I guess she could hop out, but how far is she going to get? And where does he think that she's gone? Does he know she's there? Maybe he knows, or suspects anyway. So quick couple things. First of all, theme song by Fiona Apple. I was born in the horns of a bull. I really like this, by the way, this song. Like Fiona Apple in general, but interesting tone she set here. And the needle drops are pretty good. Sleater Kinney in episode 1. We're still waiting to see, is Carrie, her husband, truly betrayed Lucky? What's his story? Was he coerced into betraying her? Was this thing real or not? Can she trust her emotions or not? All things that I think will need to be solved over the course of this, thankfully, very short series of TV. And I am curious to think about what other themes they bring in here. Obviously, this idea of family, this idea of the baggage you carry from your parents, the way that women are used as props, maybe something broadly thematic about how women are usually props in these type of noir films. There's a very ugly sequence where Priscilla thinks that her boss, which I just announced now that she's working on behalf of William Fichtner, who's always a bad guy, pretty much another one of these character actors that you'll recognize as soon as you see them. And when he turns things on her as, you think I'd be sexually attracted to you, is like such an insult to this very attractive, obviously, but older woman. There's a real cruelty to it. And it does make you think again about the position that these women in these type of series and stories usually have, the femme fatale, or the usually not the center of the story. So an interesting perspective that perhaps gets explored over the course of the rest of the series. So for episode 3, the episode title is Read the Room, and the description from Apple TV app says, Lucky goes hunting for Carrie and the missing money, while Agent Rand starts tracing her recent moves. So yeah, all these little mysteries I'm intrigued by. Of course, we haven't fully fleshed out this relationship, adoring and doting, but perhaps toxic, with her dad. Oliphant will, of course, become a bigger and bigger part of the series, I believe. He's always a pleasure to watch. Seeing Lucky reason and trick her way out of her situations rather than using muscle. I love the fact that everybody's like, she's 95 years old. She's 95 pounds. 95 years old. She's 95 pounds. How does she create such a pileup of disaster? She's been training all her life. That's how. But all the main characters have an agenda, and they all are intriguing. Lucky, of course, needs to resolve the situation with Carrie. Was she wrong to trust him? And of course, that will have big implications just from a personal standpoint, because was this the flaw in trusting that his emotions for her were real or not? Carrie, by the way, I kind of buried the lead. Carrie is Priscilla's son. So a very incestuous relationship here when you think about the fact that it's also implied very heavily that Tom, the Oliphant character, and Priscilla were romantically linked. So it's like mommy and daddy, but the children are married as well. But all aspects of that square are intriguing. What made Tom the way he is incredibly useful for Lucky to have the skills she has, but has also gotten him into this situation. He is directly the cause of the scam, of the money itself. As I mentioned, Carrie and Lucky, was that a real relationship or not? Did he betray her the whole time? Was that the plan, or was he coerced in some way? And of course, where is he? And Priscilla, this monster, supposedly terrified that she's going to find her, Lucky that is, and only to find out that Priscilla is actually working at someone else's behest. So who's the real villain in this cycle of violence? And how will all these pieces fit together? And who ends up with the money? Oh, and of course, another main character here is Agent Rand herself, who is doing a lot of this investigation off the books. And what is her agenda? Is she working for somebody else, another higher up? Or is this a personal vendetta as far as she's concerned? What is her true agenda as well? So a lot to ponder here, a lot of moving pieces, all told in a pretty streamlined, action-forward, modern noir plot, but very much thriller first, action first. And so far, I'm very much enjoying this. So just as I was finishing recording, look what the cat dragged in, practically literally. My wife has made a visit. Kimmy, how are you doing? Long time. You haven't been on the show since The Pit.
I know, it's been a while. And now you've asked me to chat about a brand new show, which I actually really liked.
That's good to hear. You haven't finished episode 2, so I won't spoil anything for episode 2, but trying to get your opinion of the one episode and change that you watched. But before we get to that, what else have you been watching? I know you just wrapped up Margot's Got Money Trouble, which we discussed on the podcast here, Darren and I.
I did finish that. It took me a while because there was always a child or two wandering about the house, so couldn't watch it when I wanted to. But yes, that show was good. It did turn dark, which got me a little off kilter, but it did wrap up in a nice way. So I would definitely watch the second season of that.
I don't think it needs a second season, but of course it's popular, so they'll make another season. And of course, it also got a whole bunch of Emmy nominations just announced last week. So glad they got nominated, but not sure we need a second season. But I do love these casts of characters, so I'll watch it.
I agree. It probably does not need a second season because that was a good contained first season, just like Euphoria probably didn't need a second season.
Or third.
Oh, God. Yeah, when you have a good thing, sometimes you need to just leave it at that. But
if it's popular, though, they're going to make another one. I just, to flesh out this episode, considering I didn't have anyone to talk to, except for me and my lonesome.
Oh, the cat.
I should bring the cat on and see.
The cat who dragged me in here.
Just meowing around. It's a giant cat. No, it's not. It's a kitten. But I did mention just a whole bunch of things that were available to stream that have been popular earlier in the year. A couple of things you saw recently. The number one streaming title right now, because it's popped up on Amazon Prime, is Project Hail Mary. And on Friday, this very Friday, coming to Peacock is Obsession. So these are two films you've watched. So let's start with Project Hail Mary. This wasn't on your radar somehow, but what did you think of this movie?
This was not on my radar, and you kept asking me if I wanted to watch it, and then we actually bought it right before it became free.
Rented.
I'm sorry, rented. I thought it was great. I went to work the day after I saw it, and someone brought it up and said how much they disliked it. I'm like, well, what were you expecting? Like, it's silly. It's fantasy. It's not, I don't know what they were expecting. Obviously not what the movie was.
Have they read the book?
I didn't ask, but I really liked it.
I was asking if they were curious if they were comparing it to the book, but I hear it's very faithful to the book. I've not read the book. It's the same author who wrote The Martian, by the way. So similarly, guy on Mars trying to survive guy on a spaceship by himself trying to survive. So definitely thematically linked. But I have not read either of those books. And but both of the films, whoever that was who spoke to you about that, definitely the minority, by the way. This film is very well liked by critics and by audiences. I have issues with the ending. Not that it's bad, but just kind of like, did we need all those endings? It's kind of like, but it was all fun for me. And Darren and I both really enjoyed that film. Definitely on currently my ranked top 10 of the year. It's on there for sure. Also on my top 10 for the year so far is Obsession. And when I saw this film, saw it by myself, and I'm like, I'm glad I didn't bring Kim. She would not be into this. But then after the film came out, all these people who were not into horror, especially women, were like, I loved it. It's like kind of like a perverse rom-com or something. So I'm like, oh, maybe Kim will like this. But my original instinct was correct. Even though audiences in general are loving this film as well. Of course, it's this phenomena that's been in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, just the utter phenomena this film has become, growing from week to week. Never since E.T. has there been a film that has grown repeatedly from week to week the way this film did initially. And a phenomena around the world as well, after not doing any kind of business overseas, has now grown overseas to be almost as popular there as it was here in the US. So just a true phenomena. But I kind of had a feeling this is maybe goes a little too hard, and maybe not initially, but eventually. So you didn't like this. I was surprised at how much you didn't like it. What were your issues with it?
I mean, I was literally stuck to my chair and not moving a muscle. I didn't get up.
Positive.
I didn't get up and do random chores around the house. I watched the movie with all of my muscles frozen because it was very engaging. But in the end, I mean, I don't like horror. And I know there was not a lot of gore in this one, but the gore that was in it really put me off. And we talked about the one scene where the friend is sitting in a chair. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
The friend is sitting in a chair, and I'm like, this is absolutely vile.
But you seemed to be uncomfortable before then. So before the film was, where were you with the film before it goes hard? Like, yes, at the last 20 minutes of the film, I'd say 15 minutes of the film.
That's the problem though, is like the last 20 or 30 minutes of the film, that's all I can think about is like all of the terrible bad things that happen. Obviously the whole movie is a terrible bad thing, but in an interesting way until, death and such things start to play into the plot. It was just very off-putting. And I was kind of freaked out by it. Like, we talked about it afterwards, and I understand your perspective in like the themes that it brought in, but I can't ignore like the horrible things that were upsetting to me, like just truly upsetting. I drove to our neighbor's house to get our daughter after I watched it, and there was a person walking in the dark underneath an underpass, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not even going to make it to go pick up my daughter because I am scared.
I don't know. You're riveted to your seat. You are haunted by the experience of watching it and deeply disturbed. This is the reason. That's a recommendation.
That's why people like it.
This is recommendation for me.
I want my friend Brierly to give us her opinion on this also, because she asked me, she's like, I have 2 hours to see a movie. I know you don't know the answer to this, but would Victor recommend I see Obsession or Backrooms? So I said Obsession, and I have not spoken to her since. So I'm going to find out, because she is of my demographic, 40-year-old woman, but she's much more into horror movies than I am.
I did text her, by the way, because I needed to know.
What did she say?
She loved it. And,
she loved it? Oh my God.
But she loves horror, so that's a different type of situation. This is not training wheels off for many years on that side. I'm just getting your training wheels off from you being married to me.
I'm slowly warming up to the perverse movies. And
the thrillers, though, you like the thrillers, but the horror, no.
Yes, thrillers I'm into.
And Obsession is a thriller for most of its runtime until it is not. Okay, a thriller, I think, pretty much a straight-up thriller, I think. A crime thriller, though, which is a very different genre, of course, than horror thriller. But lucky, the word of mouth from audiences on this seems to be pretty lukewarm. I don't know if this is going to be good overall. And I have issues with Jonathan Chopper, the creator of the show, who also does Your Friends and Neighbors. But so far, and this is closer to a series he had called Banshee, which is more of like an action thriller. But this, for me, was just a lot of fun. I just, I like seeing people. I like a heist type movie. We missed the heist, but maybe there will be a heist later on. But I just like people proficiently getting out of tight jams. I like when there's a cat and mouse, and one of the sides is not an idiot, not like the cops are all morons, and the criminal just walks through. I like the fact that we have a cat and mouse going on, which is going in multiple directions, because you have this mobster who's hunting Lucky, and Lucky's trying to get out of this jam, and also being pursued by these cops, and the cop seems to be like a great character as well. So what'd you think about this in general, and what'd you think about all the characters here?
I thought it was very fun and very engaging. Once again, I don't think I got up from my chair for this first episode of Lucky. We did lose electricity, which kind of put a pause on my finishing of the first episode. But yeah, I like the actress. She struts around like a model with her pout. Anya Taylor-Joy is her name, if I recall. So I thought she was good. And yeah, the cop character is also like on top of her game, and it's suspenseful and violent, but not in a gory way. So I started watching the second episode, but then it got too late. So I will definitely watch the second episode tonight. And the character, it's Annette Bening. Yes. Okay. So she is the interesting character of the mother-in-law who has, I don't know, are we giving away anything on this chat we're having?
At this point, I'm going to put this at the end. So I've already spoiled the first two episodes. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So an interesting dynamic between a mother-in-law and her daughter-in-law after her son has now absconded with the $10 million. She kidnaps her during this episode. So I think there's a lot of action that's fun.
Yeah, the two critiques which I come with the territory, so I'm just going to accept them, is that, first of all, the fact that there's like this convenience at the end of episode 1 that they put her in the trunk, and like she's not in a situation where like getting out of that situation would kill one of the main characters. So you kind of know that, like, for example, Dutch should have been in the car transporting her, because you basically don't want to trust her with anybody else. Although it does seem like by the end of episode 2 that Dutch indeed is the person who's going to be in pursuit of her now. Priscilla's not going to mess around, especially considering the stakes for her have increased. This is all minor spoiler for your season 2, episode 2, I mean, but you'll see all that. But so that's a little bit of it. And the other thing that I mentioned to you right away, of course, is that not only is Anya Taylor-Joy an attractive woman, on top of that, she is like an anime character. So it's like the idea that this person's just going to be, I'm going to just dye my hair and no one will recognize me anymore, or put on some sunglasses. I'm like, I don't know. Even like her distinctive walk, if you've seen like Furiosa.
She's strutting down the runway.
Even if Furiosa, when she's dressed as a boy and has her head shaved, it's like she's strutting around. It's just like, I could pick her out just from her walk.
And maybe she should have ditched the Caesars jacket at some point, because that's a bit of a dead giveaway in addition to her persona.
Just grab like a nanny sweater at one of those bus stops in one of the, and think in the Lost and Found, I think I left my sweater here. I'll take that.
And going forward, I'm going to start carrying around a lighter and a screwdriver, because that can apparently get you out of life-threatening situations.
Yes, especially if it goes right into your temple. That might have been her knife, though. It's a little pocket knife.
No, that was a screwdriver. That was a screwdriver? Yeah. And I think it went into his neck. His head? I don't know. She aimed in a good spot, right through the temporal bone, right through the carotid. I'm not sure which, but good job.
Either way, did the job. Did it. Although she passed out and slept under him for an evening, apparently. But I guess his body heat maybe kept her warm in the desert. As
Annette Bening says, I don't know how anyone can live in the desert. Hilarious.
Especially under these circumstances. And of course, I'm going to go see the Odyssey. And I mentioned to you already, maybe because I just have Odyssey on the brain, but she's on a bit of an Odyssey, right? She's like returning home, just like Odysseus. And maybe on her, these little pit stops along the way through the desert, she'll learn something new about herself and her relationship with her dad. What do you think of Timothy Oliphant as her dad? I
liked him. I mean, you don't know much about his character. They've had one interaction and a phone call.
Flashback. Oh, you haven't seen the flashback. You got to see the rest of episode 2 because there's flashbacks to her as a teenager with the dad.
Okay.
And Oliphant is playing himself. And I don't know if they put a like brown wig on him. It clipped his hair, his face back, or if they've used CGI, but he looks like much younger in those flashbacks. So I don't know if it's CGI or if it's just like, maybe it just has like a clothing pin behind his holding his neck back.
It's probably CGI. That sounds too painful otherwise.
A little expensive though, at the age. Maybe it's not expensive anymore nowadays, considering how cheap everything's become. But yeah, I'm very curious to see where it goes. I found this very entertaining so far. So
Me too.
And as I mentioned before, only 7 episodes, and they're relatively short. So what a relief after struggling to keep watching Cape Fear. Sona and I took a break from Cape Fear, then we came back to it. We talked about Gone Girl last week, and then we caught up with it again. I'm just like, oh no, why did I do this to myself? But we are so close to the end now.
You can't throw in the towel yet.
We just got to do it. And it's very popular. I don't know, people are just watching it, hate watching it, or watching it to see what's the next train wreck that'll happen. But people are watching it, so I guess we got to keep covering it.
I guess maybe I'll take that one off my list. I only got through the first episode.
Unless it's got a remarkable ending, I would be like, yeah. Oh my God. And if it ends on some kind of cliffhanger, I would be so furious. This would be like anyone would expect us to come back for a second season after like a completely protracted season 1. And I think that's it. We will probably be pairing up our conversations, Darren and I, as we cover the rest of this season of the show. We'll probably be pairing it up with stuff we've been watching. Obviously, Darren and I will both be watching the Odyssey in the next couple of days. So we'll have plenty to discuss there. And we've been talking about Nolan all over this podcast in general. So that'll be part of that next conversation. And then there are streaming premieres. There are things we saw that we never got around to talking about. There are a whole bunch of other shows coming out. Similar shows, by the way. Reacher's next season is coming, as is the Reacher spinoff series, all happening within the next couple of months. Ted Lasso's coming in a couple of weeks. Darren and I both watched that. So we will definitely have things to talk about, but we will definitely be covering Lucky through the rest of its run.
Sounds good. I'll catch you at the next episode.
Yeah, we'll try to find something to watch together before The Pit, which we have to be not until January. So anybody who misses talking or having Kim talk here on the podcast, if you want to talk to her, you can just send us a voicemail or something. But if we'll see if we can get something else here to cover sporadically through the year before The Pit, which again, a bunch of Emmy nominations for the Pit. And it'll probably win them all again. We'll know next month. All right. Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
And thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll talk to you soon.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.